Hello and welcome back to the Cover Drive podcast. We are back with yet another episode today, previewing the Asia Cup and specifically the big clash on Sunday between India and Pakistan. Um, we potentially have three India Pakistan matches coming up in the next 2 to 3 weeks, so lots for the fans to be excited about. We're going to be going over various aspects of the game, matchups, injuries, and so on. Obviously, the big news going into this match is that both India and Pakistan are missing their pace stalwarts in Shaheen Shah Afridi and Jasprit Bumrah. जहां तक बात है पाकिस्तान की, they have drafted in a replacement for Shaheen in Mohammad Hasnain, who recently returned from a corrected action. And however, in yet another setback right before the eve of the match, Wasim Jr. has also gone out injured, and he has been replaced by Hassan Ali, a very hotly debated replacement, which we will get into further. Obviously, with such injuries coming into the bowling attack, it's going to be interesting how Pakistan line up on Sunday. Before I do a deep dive into the stats, I would like to introduce our guests today. We have Zain Malik, not the singer, but President Misbah from Twitter. And we have Fasih from Twitter as well. Both people I think most of you will be familiar with. We're going to have I'm looking forward to this chat with them, and they're going to be providing some really good insights. So I hope you guys stick along for the conversation. When we look at the replacement options for Shaheen and Wasim, obviously there's a couple of factors that come into that. Shaheen आपका new ball का bowler था, Wasim not so much. So Wasim was probably going to end up being your third pacer, along with Naseem and Rauf. Now, when we look at Shaheen and his replacement, it was more so going to be Naseem Shah, because Naseem jo hai, he's the new ball option. If we look at his stats in 2022 in T20s, it's 14 wickets with an average of 21.85, economy of 8. And obviously that new ball potency comes in. We were all looking forward to finally seeing Naseem make it big on the big stage alongside Shaheen, but now he's going to have to be spearheading the attack in that power play, which will be quite the challenge. Pertinent to point out here कि ये Naseem का T20I debut होगा पाकिस्तान के लिए. He just recently made his ODI debut against the Netherlands, performed very well. So form-wise, he's doing well. The second power play option obviously would be Mohammad Nawaz, considering the UAE conditions. उसके power play stats अगर देखें जाए तो cumulatively in his career, he has an average of 21.5 with an economy of 6.45 in the power play. Again, very solid stats. Now that's our power play sorted, and then I guess the debate comes down to who is that third pacer. If you're going in with Rauf and Naseem, who is the third guy you go in with? I'm going to hand it over to my guests, starting with Zen. What do you think? What do you think the makeup of Pakistan's bowling attack is going to look like come Sunday?
First of all, Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and happy to be here. I think regarding the debate that's at hand with the third pacer, अभी सबको पता था कि वसीम जूनियर ने ही होना था क्योंकि it seemed the management was backing him, and he has kind of always been that just off the bench pacer type guy. They've always preferred him to Dahani, and they've been giving him a lot of opportunities. I feel like उन्होंने probably सोचा होगा कि he offers some batting depth, maybe that's why, and he does kind of have that dip in his bowling, and the ball skids when he bowls more, so that's a bit more pertinent because he's attacking the stumps. But unfortunately, जिस तरह हम सबको पता है, he has suffered a back injury and he's ruled out. And very controversially, Hassan Ali has come into the squad, and that's caused a whole host of reactions among our fan base. If you ask me personally, I'm a big fan of the idea of incumbency, in the sense that whoever's been carried on with the squad for a long time, especially if they've been on the bench, I just feel like from the principle of incumbency, they deserve to have the next shot in the 11, just because it's only fair. So if we look at it from that perspective, I definitely feel that Dahani should be playing in this game. I would say that if we look at the role of a middle overs enforcer, Dahani has done that very well for Multan Sultans. In इस PSL में he was still okay. I think it wasn't as good as his breakout season. Breakout season में तो he topped the wicket taking charts. But he does that middle overs enforcer role very well in my opinion. He can hit those hard lengths well, and वो बीच में इनके जो कोई कोई middle order batsmen है who struggle a bit against hard lengths, he can definitely target them if he gets to bowl to them. So for me personally, I definitely think Dhani should be that guy. The thing with Hassan Ali is that I just don't see the need to play him, because I understand that he has the experience, but he's woefully out of form in white ball. And I think if we play him now, we're just throwing him under the bus. And lastly, again, हम सबको पता है कि हसनैन को भी pick किया गया है. But again, I just think that the role that this 11 needs right now is one, maybe a guy who can maybe bowl like one over in the power play, maybe the fifth or sixth over, and then predominantly bowl in the middle overs, because I would assume that the deaths will be handled by Naseem and Haris. तो फिर उस हिसाब से I just don't see the need to play Hassan. एक तो like we know his action has recently been remodeled, and that's an issue perhaps. And secondly, I just think that he's not as effective as a middle overs enforcer. He's really moved into the role of a power play pacer now. So yeah, based on all of these arguments, I definitely say we should be backing the Honey to take that third pacer role. But let's see, the team management का काफी tactical जो decisions होती हैं. I personally don't agree with a lot of them, but I hope they do decide to go with the Honey.
Honey, and even if you'll go into the stats, obviously Hassan के बारे में तो कोई दो सवाल नहीं है how out of form he is. I personally don't blame them for going to him. Obviously, when Shaheen went out, they replaced him with Hasnan. Now, when you have another guy go down with an injury, I think he's coming in really just as a cover. क्योंकि अगर देखा जाए तो वो Saturday को probably fly in करेगा. If I don't know if he's already reached Dubai, but I don't think one day of training is going to be enough to get him match ready, and it would be very stupid of the team management to do that. I don't think even they're that dumb. अगर हम stats compare करें तीनों options के, तो you have Hassan जिसके दो, and these are all for 2022, 10 games, 9 wickets, average of 43, economy of 10. So that's really not inspiring much confidence in anyone when it comes to Hassan. Hasnan ke, obviously, his stats I have in two sets. One's his overall stats, which is 16 wickets, 5 games. Sorry, not 5 games. 16 wickets at an average of 19.75, economy 8.10. But ever since his new action, these are his stats in the 100. 5 गेमों में उसने 6 विकेट लिए हैं, average of 21, economy of 11. So economy is a bit on the higher side. That's just, I think, part and parcel of the format, which is the 100. But Dahani is the obvious standout here. He has 11 games, 17 wickets, 19.76 की average है, 9.3 की economy. Economy can do with some work, but still, I think he's the standout option here. He's been with the squad longer. So I think pecking order wise, he deserves that position. And again, as you very importantly mentioned, middle overs का एक अच्छा enforcer हो सकता है वो. He bowls the hard lengths really well. And I think he's a tailor-made player for that specific phase of the game. And considering you would have Naseem and Rauf either side of him, one handling the power play, the other handling the death. And I'm sure Naseem भी death में 2 over तो कराएगा ही कराएगा, and he's decent enough at it. He showed that he could do it at Quetta. I think it's a no-brainer to go with him. Obviously, we have Fasih with us as well. तो Fasih, तुम बताओ यार, क्या लग रहा है हसन अली सिलेक्शन धानी हसनैन में से कौन खेलना चाहिए? Please go ahead.
Okay, assalamu alaikum guys. Yeah, देखो, I think it's pretty clear cut. Hassan का कोई chance नहीं है, and I don't think he'll play either. अभी अगर आज भी अगर even if he's here today, उसको सिर्फ एक practice session मिलता है tomorrow complete, जो I think there is no chance of him playing. अब बात की है दहानी और हसनैन की, हमारे पास एक डिबेट रही है, because अगर हम 3 पेसर्स खिला रहे हैं तो रऊफ और नसीम तो इट्स डन डील. अब मैं एक परस्पेक्टिव से ये सोच रहा हूँ कि if we, let's say we do play Dahani, would it be better for us to not have Rauf and Dahani together? एक तरीके से do we not have two enforcers already in a way? Because फिर आप अगर आप middle overs आप क्या बोलते हैं पूरा वसीम और दहानी से fill कर देते हैं, does that not make weird? Because now you have pretty much similar type of bowlers in a way. Not like, for example, and we know Rauf is full pace, but They bowl hard lengths, and I think that's one of the best things about Surya Kumar when Surya Kumar plays. So उस पे मेरे हिसाब से I think maybe we should like give Hasnain a chance instead, because now you'll have three different pacers instead of और तीनों की एक completely different quality हो.
I guess, but I think the main thing we need to see now is that हाँ definitely Haris Rauf, especially जब शुरू में आया था, he was that middle overs enforcer, but I would say he's evolved past that role. For me personally, right now, if we go into this game, I actually don't want him to bowl that much in the middle. I want him to be saved purely for the death. And just out of necessity, he should have one over in the power play. मैं तो चाहता नहीं हूँ कि power play में bowl करे, but I think he'll probably have to just because of how the team's made up. I would probably give him the. Of course, it changes based on how the game is going. But if we're going on it just off paper, and I'm assuming, let's say we're bowling first, I would have probably give him the 20th, 18th, and क्या 16th हो गया ना 16 yeah 16 18 and 20th overs उन तीनों पे उसको concentrate करो and give him one over in the power play maybe in the fifth or sixth over just because I think अब वो इतना अच्छा हो गया है like let's be frank he has one of the best death economies in the world if I'm not wrong in T20s and he's a very good bowler at that specific phase of the game. Given that we're short on Shaheen right now, I think we definitely have to concentrate him there and kind of use him in that goal-esque role because it's out of pure necessity. And मेरे हिसाब से इसलिए मैं दहानी को चाहता हूँ because now that we've shifted kind of Rauf into this more death heavy role, you can have someone who can take over the middle overs role from Rauf and do it. I wouldn't say, of course, to his level because Rauf has, Alhamdulillah, kafi match experience and performances with the international, with the Pakistan shirt. But he can definitely hit those hard lengths in the middle because I feel like हमें कोई चाहिए है in the middle overs के अगर let's say Pandya and Pant come in early we really need someone to hit those hard lengths at them from the get-go and make them uncomfortable from the start. Because especially Pant, I am very scared of Pant in this game. He's the one guy that I personally, मुझे लगता है he can take the game away from us. And I think we need to be very aggressive in our approach against all of these guys and maximize our matchups. इसलिए मेरे हिसाब से, I think Dahani should play. But honestly, I would not be too disappointed if Hasnan plays. Because I think then if Hasnan plays, then they can change the way they set up their overs because then in Hasnan you have another guy who can bowl two in the power play तो फिर आप वो load बेहतर manage कर सकते हैं and you can redistribute those loads those overloads across the whole 20 overs better so honestly I see the merit in both bowlers I just think that picking Dahani would be a bit more useful and I think it's only fair for Dahani because he's been in the squad for longer and I think he deserves it from that perspective.
Yes, exactly. मैं बस यही कह रहा मैं I think I get your point. Also, it's way more fair to Dahani towards के इतनी देर से वो बेचारा टीम के साथ ट्रैवल कर रहा है and even when he's traveling he hasn't playing much तो it be fair for Dahani क्योंकि हसनैन तो अभी अभी वापस आया he's just played the 100 a few games international cricket तो अल्लाह जाने कब से खेली भी नहीं उसने तो I think it's pretty fair to Dahani.
एंड आई थिंक अगर हम लोग लास्ट ईयर के मैच की तरफ जाएं तो पांड्या obviously he wasn't fully fit but even then the way we saw हारिस ने उसको काफी contain किया था towards the back end of the game and we need to remember in that game it was Haris and Shaheen who were bowling towards the back end along with I think Hassan also bowled one over तो हमें ये भी देखना है कि हसनैन जो है he is more prone to getting hit towards the back end because he tries to go fuller and that often backfires for him. So in that sense, also I think Dahani might just be the better option in containing them. Obviously, overs 10 to 16 में हम लोग ये भी देखेंगे कि शदाब 8 to 16 में शदाब भी will become a factor. So it's gonna be interesting how they put it together. But I think on a lighter note, I think as long as Hassan Ali isn't the one they're putting in, we're happy with either one of the other two. And this isn't something against Hassan. It's like यार उसकी खुद की confidence short है. I was really looking forward to him going into domestic and trying to regain it. He just as long as he's there on the bench as the experienced head to like motivate the younger ones, I think that's a good call. But other than that, I don't think he should be in the 11. Well, obviously that's all the discussion about the Pacers. We will come back to them later on in this episode when we discuss some of the matchups that are going to be interesting in this match. Coming on to the next point of contention is the middle order. Obviously पाकिस्तान का middle order तो पिछले 1-2 सालों से काफी डिस्कस हो रहा है. हमेशा हम लोग देखते हैं बड़े टूर्नामेंट के आसपास आ जाओ तो आपके वही पुराने आपके जो what do you call them? I can't find the word right now. Your जो हमेशा आपके प्लेयर वापस आ जाते.
Stalwarts, old stalwarts.
Yes, that's the word. तो वही आ जाते हैं आपके शोएब मलिक हो गए, आपके मोहम्मद हफीज हो गए. हफीज भाई तो ऑब्वियसली वो इज्जत से उन्होंने रिटायरमेंट ले ली पिछले वर्ल्ड कप के बाद, लेकिन मलिक साहब में अभी तक शर्म आई नहीं है. वो अभी भी अपने आप अपनी पीआर कैंपेन चला रहे हैं. अभी मैंने देखा फात मुस्तफ़ा का 4 घंटे पहले ट्वीट आया कि आपको मिस किया जाएगा एशिया कप में. मतलब I'm not gonna turn this into a Shoaib Malik rant session. You guys get enough of that on my.
मैं वही बोलने वाला, तो थोड़ा बर्दाश्त कर लो, स्पेसेस पे बात कर लेंगे उसके बाद.
हाँ नहीं, वो बात तो होती रहती है. We have 3 middle order options going into this tournament for the numbers 4 and 5, in my opinion. The most obvious of them being Heather, Shadab, and Iftikhar. Now, we saw in the Australia 1-off T20 a tactical masterclass of playing Iftikhar Ahmed at number 4. Iftikhar Ahmed, who is genuinely, I think, the weakest player of spin in this team. उसको हमने number 4 पे खिला दिया था. And we saw how that ended up. The whole team collapsed. कोई बिल्कुल sense नहीं बन रहा था. What didn't make even more sense was that Shadab wasn't even in the squad, and even then Heather didn't make it into the 11. I'm obviously going to do a deep dive into all 3 of their stats, but before that, I want you guys to chime in. What do you think Pakistan's number 4, 5? Let's add 6 and 7 into the mix as well. 4 to 7, आप लोगों को क्या लगता है? Who are you looking for and why? I'll go to Zain first.
So I am personally काफी बड़ा fan of kind of defined roles in a T20 11. And I've always felt that your number 4 should be someone who has the ability to start fast against spin, ताकि basically आपके overs 8 to 16 में आपकी जो strike rate है वो dip ना करे. आपकी team की run rate जो है, it doesn't dip. Because oftentimes what happens is a lot of guys, they come in and they maybe try to settle a bit against spin, and that can waste some balls. So I definitely believe that your 4 should be the best spin hitter in your team, and then of course 5, 6, 7 pay you get more so your pace hitters. But based on this, I would say personally that I would take either one of Heather or Shadab at 4. I think that taking Shadab at 4 maybe might be a too much of a hipster pick for this think tank, but uske hisab se phir I'd probably go with Heather at 4. I understand that some people think that, he usko bahut opportunities di and whatnot, and he's not performed. But if I recall correctly, his last T20 series was the West Indies one, and I think he made a pretty good 50 in that, or 60 odd. I mean, I do not recall exactly, but I definitely think he should be backed, and it was encouraging to see that he was having these special net sessions with Mohammad Yusuf, who, as we've seen, also helped Fahim Ashraf regained some touch a few एक दो साल पहले. And उसके बाद then I think at 5 we should have Shadab, and then at 6 and 7 I would probably have Khushtil at 6 and Asif at 7. And my reasoning behind this is that I believe that wo jo Khushtil and Asif hain, they, for me, they struggle against spin, and they are purely pace hitters. We really want to minimize the amount of spin that they face. मैं तो कहता हूँ कि खुदा ना खास्ता अगर collapse हो भी जाए, you want to send Nawaz over these two if there's a lot of overs of spin left, just to make sure that they don't get exposed to spin. हमने देखा हुआ है काफी बार Asif and Khushtil, they can often play stupid hoiks or slogs and get caught off spinners. And I feel like they can definitely give their wickets to Chahal this way. मुझे अभी याद आया कि 2018 Asia Cup में, although that was a 50 over tournament, I recall that एक चहाल का एक ही over रह गया था, if I'm not wrong, just before 40 to 50 phase जो था. And उस over के अंदर Asif got out to him. So I think we just want to minimize that exposure of these pace hitters to any form of spin, just so we can maximize the amount of runs we make. And we want to make sure that 4 and 5 are front loaded with two guys who not only can accelerate against spin, but I honestly feel that Heather and Shadab also have pretty good pace hitting games as well. So they won't really slow down on that front. So for me, just to repeat, I would have at 4, I would have Heather. At 5, I would have Shadab. At 6, I would have Khushtil. At 7, I would have Asif. And at 8, I would have Nawaz.
हाँ एकदम स्पॉट ऑन there's मैंने ये लाइनअप अभी लिखी हुई थी, मैंने लिखी थी एग्जैक्टली वही लाइनअप है मेरे पास भी. हैदर एट 4, शादाब एट 5, खुशदिल एट 6, आसिल एट 7, नवाज एट 8, एंड एवरी रीजनिंग you've given is spot on. और वैसे भी अगर आप रीसेंट परफॉर्मेंसेस पे अगर आप हैदर को नहीं खिला रहे तो दैट्स, अगर लोग कहेंगे वो हैदर रीसेंट परफॉर्मेंसेस की अच्छी नहीं आई मीन, उसके पिछले 3 इनिंग्स में से 2 इनिंग्स हैव बीन प्रीटी गुड. आई थिंक दैट 68 वर्सेस वेस्ट इंडीज और 45 वॉट उसने बांग्लादेश के खिलाफ भी बनाए थे. तो और दैट वेस्ट इंडीज वन वाज एक्चुअली प्रीटी इंप्रेसिव. मैं दोबारा अगर देखता हूँ तो इट वाज लाइक 180 की स्ट्राइक रेट पे उसने कोई 68 और बनाए थे. तो और आप रिस्क भी नहीं ले सकते. इट्स अ गेम अगेंस्ट इंडिया in Asia Cup. You can actually afford to make these changes instead of just going for that safe option, even though it's not that safe. Push that Iftikhar at 4, but you need some changes. Or I think this is the best way to see where Heather stands at and where Shadab stands at 4 and 5.
Yeah, and sorry, just so I could add on, I just remembered that before his unfortunate injury in the PSL this year, I would honestly say that Shadab was having one of the all-time great PSL seasons. Unfortunately, he got derailed because of that injury. But honestly, he would just all-round performance there. It was quite frankly insane for me to see. It was ridiculous how good he was performing. And I just remembered that, of course, usne bowling bhi bahut achhi kari thi. But if we look at his batting stats, he made 268 runs in 8 games with an average of 33.5 and a strike rate of 162.42. If we look at PSL batsmen, overseas and domestic, who had a minimum of 200 runs in that season, Shadab had the highest strike rate for a domestic batsman in the PSL in that season. He's the only one who was only domestic batsman who had a strike rate of above 160 in that season. The only one that comes close to him was Fakhr Zaman, jiski strike rate 150 se zyada thi. So I think we can really grasp how good of a batsman he is actually. And I really believe that we have to use him at least at 5. Because Varna, I just think we are wasting him as a batting commodity. We all know how much of good of a leg spinner he is, how much he contributes in that 8 to 16 over phase. Although I don't like to mention this match, I'll go and see that World T20 semi. I mean, if it was not for his bowling performance, we were done and dusted in that game. And I believe he took the best figures in a World T20 semi ever. I am quite sure that's the case. But what my point really is that we know what he adds in the bowling, right? Why don't we tap into that in the batting as well? Because we know he can do it. And I think given that he's been batting higher up in the, I think Sydney Sixers ke liye bhi kiya hua hai. He's done it for in the NatWest Blast as well, I think for Yorkshire. And I think he's generally Islamabad United ke liye bhi, he's shown that he can take that batting responsibility. So I would definitely say that if the management wants to make the most out of him, they have to bat him at least at 5, because I think otherwise we're just wasting him. I think honestly he's a brilliant player. He's a it's a funny word to use, but he really is a three-dimensional player with his batting, his bowling, and his fielding. And आप एक चौथी dimension भी add कर दो कि his captaincy and his tactical nous is honestly very good as well. So I just think it would be a waste if we see him bat anywhere lower than 5.
I
आप एक फिफ्थ डायमेंशन भी ऐड कर सकते हैं कि फैन कैम्स भी अच्छे आ जाते हैं उसके.
Yeah, definitely.
fan cam tax is very strong with शदाब. यार लेकिन यही है ना कि अभी ट्विटर वाली आवाम को आप शदाब की बात करें, उसकी बैटिंग की, तो वो अपनी ठंडी जुगते मारेंगे 40 मीटर वाली बाउंड्री की. मतलब आई डोंट नो व्हाट पीएसएल दे वॉच जहाँ पे 40 मीटर की बाउंड्री होती है. शायद वो एक, मुझे याद है एक जो प्लेऑफ हुआ था 2019 में, जिसमें फर्स्ट गेम में आई थिंक द बाउंड्री वाज ridiculously small. But or I don't even remember how much Shadab batted in that game. But like that's not part. It's not supposed to be a logical point. I mean, मैं जुगत मारने की कोशिश कर रहा हूँ and failing terribly at that. Um, शदाब की जहां तक बात है यार, tactically तो obviously I think he's the strongest player in this Pakistan team despite not being the captain. And no, this is not me calling for a change in captaincy. इससे पहले के लोग comments में आके मेरी छह छह नस्लों को गालियां देने शुरू हो जाएं. नो, आई एम नॉट कॉलिंग फॉर दैट. इट्स जस्ट अ स्टैंडर्ड फैक्ट अबाउट शदाब एंड हिज acumen. जहां तक बात है ये शदाब के स्टैट्स की, आई वाज एक्चुअली गोना टाउट द सेम स्टैट्स. एंड ओके, आई कैन अंडरस्टैंड दे माइट बी अ बिट इफी कि उसने नंबर 4 इंटरनेशनल्स में नहीं खेला है. डू वी वांट टू प्ले हिम दैट हाई इन सच अ हाई प्रोफाइल गेम? I have two responses to that. Number one, you should have done this months ago. आप लोगों को पता नहीं क्यों दिमाग में नहीं आता है कि हमें शदाब को ऊपर खिलाना चाहिए. मुझे अभी तक याद है न्यूजीलैंड में जब हम लोग 2020 में गए थे, towards the back end of the year, बाबर इंजर हो गया था and Shadab was the captain for those T20s and he played an absolutely brilliant knock in that first T20. And obviously he missed a few games after that through injury. But even despite that, वो performance should have been enough for this think tank to figure out कि भाई शदाब को ऊपर खिलाना जरूरी है. And obviously it was a different think tank back then, but point still stands. Babar was still the captain, right? Um, so okay, if you play him at 5, I think Heather is a perfectly great option at 4. इसके मैंने 2021-22 के stats निकाले हैं. Ask Cricinfo wasn't really cooperating on this one, so I don't know what range of matches this is, but I'm assuming it's from the National T20 to the West Indies series, considering the numbers I have in front of me. So he had 465 runs, average of 51.6, strike rate of 137, which I think is a very respectable list of stats. I would like the strike rate to be better there, but I think Heather के थोड़ा जो dips in form आए उसकी वजह से उसका strike rate has been affected a bit. But I think playing with that bubble of Babar, Rizwan, Fakhar at the top, I think he will be more he'll have more leeway to kind of let loose when he comes out to bat, because his job isn't going to be to sustain a particular end, as opposed to Peshawar में जहाँ पे उसको ऊपर से नीचे shuffle किया जा रहा था. He was trying to figure out what he has to do. Same with, I guess, Northern. He's one of their frontline batsmen, apart from Shadab, obviously, when Shadab's playing for them. So I think Haider Shadab को आप 4-5 पे खिला दे. Obviously, Ifti, I almost called him Chacha Ifti. But yeah, like Iftikhar जो है, I really rate Iftikhar. I think he should probably make the middle order in Australia, considering his track record there. But the T20 hipster in me wants Shadab at 5 and Heather at 4, because I think जिस तरह से हमारे top 3 bat करते हैं, that's the only sustainable way to create your middle order. Like, your middle order needs to be people who can go hard. And Iftikhar can go hard at 5. It's just against India, we know कि probably 15th, 16th over तक हमें spin के साथ शायद deal करना पड़ेगा. And I don't trust Iftikhar to be able to deal with that. I feel like बहुत slow down हो जाएगा in that middle over phase if we have a collapse. And I think with that, our middle order debate should be wrapped up. Moving on to the next section, I know Zen has done a really deep dive into the potential matchups we're going to be seeing in this match. This section is totally yours, Zen. Take it away.
Okay, so honestly, the inner cricket enthusiast in me just wanted to see kind of quantifying how the Indian batsmen perform against different types of bowling. I'm just a cricket enthusiast. Honestly, I'm no analyst. I don't really have much of a deep understanding of the game, but I felt like the bare minimum I can do personally is just look into the stats. तो मैंने कहा मैं क्रिक मैट्रिक पे चला जाता हूँ, थोड़ी सी stats निकाल लेता हूँ, and just really look at how each Indian batsman fares against different types of bowling. Just because I feel like our batting, it's pretty obvious who we're going to play for the most part. So I think it'll be a pretty interesting topic if we look at how their bowlers face against different types of bowling, how their batsmen face against different types of bowling. Because I would ideally hope we bowl first, and I've kind of built my thinking all around that. So if we start with Rohit Sharma, I would like to make some distinctions between their T20I stats and their T20 stats. Their T20 stats are heavily influenced by IPL, and I'm not going to get into the whole is IPL better than international cricket debate. That's just a completely different thing. But अगर आप genuinely रोहित शर्मा की stats को देखें, I would say that, and if you honestly look at him as a player, we know that he starts a bit slow, but then when he gets into his groove, he's a monster. I remember, if I'm not wrong, Cricinfo even did an article on this once, and they called it the no hit, bro hit line. There's a literal point after which he accelerates into madness. So essentially, what our aim is that we want to get him out before that he hits that point, right? So if we look at Rohit Sharma, it is clear in his T20 stats that he does struggle again left arm fast being like proper gas left arm bowling, because he averages 15 against it at a strike rate of 102.3 at T20 level, at domestic T20 level. But if we look at left arm medium, this weakness kind of evaporates. So I would say we can't look much into it. And obviously, because Shaheen is not there anymore, so we can't really, there's not much we can do with this information.
नहीं
But
नहीं,
if we look at,
मीर हमजा को होना चाहिए यार स्क्वाड में.
yeah, that's true. But aside from that, I'd say the main form of bowling that it seems there's some trend that he's not that good against comparatively is probably right arm leg spin. तो अगर हम देखें उसके domestic T20 stats में, so this is including IPL, he averages 27.3 with a strike rate of 115.1. And these stats are better at international level. It goes up to an average of 37.4, but the strike rate is still somewhat low at 123. So that's definitely, I guess, one thing we could exploit if he makes it past the power play, for example. And another thing we observed is that although he has a very high average against left arm orthodox, it's 51.6 at domestic T20 level, but his strike rate is very low. It's 109.6 at domestic level again. This weakness slightly evaporates at international level, but even then the bump up in strike rate, it only goes up to 126. So I'd say our main aim against Rohit should be to attack him with kind of in the power play, attack him with Naseem and Nawaz. तो आप एक एंड पे नसीम से को बोल कराएं, just hope that he moves the ball, maybe gets him trapped in front, something like that. And on the other end, you want Nawaz ताकि he gets dot ball pressure up on Rohit, and maybe force him to make a stupid decision against Naseem, for example. I think that's really the only thing we can do. And uske baad, if he stays past that, then maybe Shadab and Inshallah. Because aside from that, I honestly think there's not much we can do against Rohit if we don't get him out early. And that's what I'd probably say. Like either focus on slow left arm or maybe use some overs of Shadab. But your main aim against Rohit has to be to get him out early. Otherwise, good luck, I'd say. The next batsman I think I'd like to talk about really is KL Rahul. This guy really shocks me because statistically speaking, he doesn't really have any weakness on paper. He's good against all forms of bowling. He has no discernible weakness. I mean, I guess you could say that he doesn't have good stats against slow left arm and orthodox, but that's only because he's only faced 13 balls of it at international level. So you can't really make much of a conclusion of that. The only main types of bowling that he seems to have a dip in his strike rate in is a left arm orthodox as well as right arm leg break, but he averages a healthy 30 plus for all of these. There's no real drop in his average. उसकी strike rate जो है domestic T20 level पे it's 123.5 against leg spin and 105.6 versus the slow left arm orthodox. But at international level, the strike rate against left arm orthodox is 159.5, even though it stays low against leg spin at 121.4. So again, for KL Rahul, I honestly, on paper, he's a batsman that's very scary, just because statistically speaking, you can't really observe any weakness from him. But I'd say the only thing we can really do is either वही जो शाहीन type scene हुआ था पहली पिछली गेम में कि get him out with the new ball with the absolutely beautiful delivery, या उसको आप शादाब बोल कर आए. Otherwise, again, just inshallah ही करें, because I honestly speaking, aside from that, I just don't really see what we can do against him. He's a very good batsman. The KL Rahul's biggest villain is KL Rahul himself, because I often feel that he doesn't exploit his own ability to the best of its potential. He often wastes his ability and he doesn't use the repertoire he has. I honestly speaking, when I watch him bat, when he bats like he bats like you're watching something in a video game. But unfortunately, he just does not use that ability that much. But yeah, moving on. So
I think वो जहाँ तक KL की बात है, at least from what I've seen of KL, especially this season in the IPL, it becomes a sort of an intent issue with him. Because देखो, raw ability तो definitely है. हम ये same बात हमारे players के लिए भी काफी बार करते हैं कि he seems to bat a bit too conservatively. And having watched the IPL this season, मैंने काफी सालों बाद एक proper season follow किया था. Um, I feel like he did cost LSG a couple of high run chases. There's one very specific one I can remember. मुझे याद नहीं आ रहा है कौन सी टीम के साथ था, but it was towards the back end of the tournament where I think he scored like 60 odd of 50, and they were chasing like a 170 par score, and it did not end well for them. Um, so again, I think a lot about the Indian top order right now is what Indian top order is gonna come out to bat? Is it the one that was pre Rohit Sharma's captaincy or the one we've been seeing in the last 6 months? क्योंकि हम लोग अगर अभी इंग्लैंड वाली सीरीज देख लें, उससे पहले जो सीरीज हुई है, इंडिया हैज बिन गोइंग with a lot of intent in the power play. They've been trying to knock the ball out of the park, not worry about wickets. Even Virat Kohli, jitni baar he might have not gotten big scores, but when he has scored, he scored at a faster pace, and it hasn't hindered India's overall scoring rate. So I think that's going to be a massive factor going into this match.
हाँ, yeah, definitely. Actually, जो जिस game की I think तुम बात कर रहे हो, it was the match against KKR. I'm not sure if this was a knockout game. I think this was a group game, but उसमें उन्होंने 210 for no loss wicket किए थे, and KL made 68 of 51, and they almost lost the game by 2 runs. So definitely, I think there's an intent issue, and it's sad for me because genuinely he's my favorite batsman in the Indian team. But वो अपने जो उसका जो capability है वो इस्तेमाल नहीं करता, in my opinion. But then again, let's see. Maybe he'll do it this time. कुछ पता नहीं है. But yeah, just moving on to Kohli, जिस तरह तुमने mention किया. One thing I find very interesting about Kohli is if you separate his stats in एक तो उसकी total aggregate stats and then his stats after roughly when COVID started. So I just chose an arbitrary cutoff point of 1st Jan 2020. His stats really fall off a cliff in this period in T20s. And it's masked in his aggregate stats. It gets masked in his aggregate stats because he used to be so good at that. आपको ये नजर नहीं आता if you use only his if you use his aggregate stats. But genuinely his pace hitting game, his high pace hitting game and his spin hitting game have all fallen off a cliff. This is at T20 level, T20I level, it's virtually evaporated. His international strike rate against left arm fast is 100. At domestic level, his left arm orthodox strike rate is 115.7. No, sorry, that's an international strike rate. Uski domestic wali falls down to 96.8. And this is the pattern across all of the matchups. I know I respect Kohli a lot. He's one of the goats in ODIs and all of that. But genuinely speaking, his stats have fallen off a cliff recently. It's kind of sad to see. And I don't want to sound like an entitled fan or anything, but I do genuinely hope that he anchors their innings from whenever he comes in all the way to like around the 16th over, and then he gets out at a very low strike rate, because I think that genuinely benefits us. Because at that point, jab wo out hoga, he will bring in their hitters at very like late points, and then they will have to hit out or get out, and us tarah hum wickets le sakte hain. So again, I respect Virat Kohli a lot, but statistically speaking, I just think it would be a huge benefit to us if he stays batting for India.
I mean,
And
Virat Kohli is like the eternal debate when it comes to Twitter at this point. I personally think he should drop T20Is from his repertoire completely. क्योंकि देखे ODI का he can still be a very fine batsman. Tests तो obviously उसकी long term एक shelf life होगी. India currently considering the type of talent they have, even looking at someone like a Deepak Huda, I don't think he's like extremely highly rated in Indian cricketing circles, but from the bit I've seen from him, I would much rather him be in the top three of India as opposed to Virat Kohli at this point in time. There are some rumblings that he might call it today after the World T20, but let's see what happens.
I have now come on to Surya, जिसकी आजकल बहुत hype चल रही है, and deservedly so. I mean, this guy, इसको, although some people थोड़ा ज़्यादा ही Mr. 360 कह रहे हैं, given that I do think he struggles a bit to hit it straight. I had a conversation with Rayan, also known as Cricket Critic, and he noted this out very rightly to me. But definitely, especially hard lengths पे his swivel pulls, and I mean, honestly, it's brutal stuff. He's a great pace hitter. And if I'm not wrong, he just made a century against England as well in T20. And I watched that knock. It was honestly superb. It was a superb innings from him. But if we look at him generally, what we'll observe is he is a monster against pace. Monster. He kills pace. He destroys it. But one thing to note is that he has a slight weakness against left arm orthodox, and this is a weakness that translates across T20 internationals as well as T20s, because agar aap iski stats dekhein, he averages 28.5 with a strike rate of 103.6 against left arm orthodox in T20Is, and he averages 26 with a strike rate of 101.6 in T20s. So there's a clear discernible kind of weakness here present against left arm orthodox, and I think that's the main matchup we want to exploit against him. या तो आप kind of Nawaz या खुशदिल को लगा दें इसके खिलाफ, and hope that they can prize a wicket, because what's important to note is there's a drop in his average and his strike rate. So that means not only does he struggle to hit these types of deliveries, but he also struggles to play them in general. So I would say that's the main matchup we want to exploit. The second one that is there to note is leg spin. At domestic T20s, he averages 27.5 with a strike rate of 124.1. But this weakness evaporates at international T20s. I don't know if that's because the standard of leg spin bowling he's faced in the IPL is much higher than internationals. That could be it. But if that's the case, then it genuinely is something we could exploit as well. So is hisab se, I think Shadab could also be a good option. But I'd say in general, we want to make sure that kind of, I mean, I guess you can't avoid bowling pace to him, but that's a matchup that favors him a lot. I would say we want to try and focus bowling, especially left arm orthodox to him, because I definitely think that is one clear weakness Surya has, at least statistically speaking. Ab eye test ki kauri baat hoti hai, but I can't really talk about the eye test because I haven't played cricket to that caliber ke I can, but I would say on paper it's clear that this is something we could use against him. And moving on to Rishabh Pant, but before that, I just wanted to give the floor back to Asad.
I think यार के जहाँ तक बात है ये सूर्या की, obviously you mentioned the left arm orthodox, and it's like in that regard, Nawaz is going to be very important. I think we're going to be looking towards getting the Nawaz of Quetta Gladiators UAE Glory going, and it's obviously a very big void for him to fill of that of Imad Wasim, because Imad ne hame UAE में जिस तरह carry किया था during his prime years, and as recently as I think 2021 का जो World Cup था, he did really well. Nawaz has deservedly replaced him because of his performances, his fitness, and his overall all-round ability as a T20 player. तो सूर्या के स्टैट्स मैंने निकाले थे against left arm spin. His career strike rate is 105 against left arm spin, so that does indicate a bit of a weakness. 2022 mein it's a bit better, it's at 131. So as you said, eye test will be very important when it comes to that. Obviously numbers को अगर हम लोग crunch करें तो there is a supposed weakness there, and it's not only I don't think it's not just us talking about it. There are experts talking about it as well. Um, so definitely gonna be interesting how Nawaz manages to handle him.
Yeah,
And
no,
I
for sure.
and I forgot to add, we always have the option of Kushdal as well to get in an over or two of his left arm spin as well.
Yeah, definitely. यही बात है कि sometimes of course players are they have a temporal career, right? It moves on with time. So if they can get better with time. So yeah, definitely we'll see. I just say that on paper, that's all I can tell. But उसके बाद अब I'm gonna assume they're batting Pant at 5. And I remember in our last game at the T20 World Cup, Pant was at a stage at that game where I felt he could have gone off and taken the game away from us. But जैसे ही वो stage आया, Shadab bowled a googly to him and caught him out. So I definitely he's a batsman I'm very afraid of. If we look at his ability against spin, he murders all kind of spin. He absolutely eats it alive. I mean, आप ऑफ स्पिन बोल कर लें, स्लो लेफ्ट आर्म ऑर्थोडॉक्स बोल कर लें, लेग स्पिन बोल कर लें, मतलब वो सब खा जाता है. He destroys it. If we look at averages or strike rates, regardless, he murders it. But one weakness I would say that is observable for Pant is that he does struggle a bit against right arm fast, like proper gas fast bowling. थोड़ी सी उसको मुश्किल होती है. The strike rate doesn't really dip. I mean, at T20 level, it doesn't really dip. It's 138.2. But at international level, it dips all the way down to 109.4. And the averages across internationals and T20s are low. In T20Is, there were 15.5 and T20s, it's 14. So it's clear that I would say अगर इसको आप high pace at hard lengths लगा सकते हैं, definitely, like of course we've seen he has all the unorthodox shots in his repertoire, जिस तरह वो type reverse sweeps and scoops and whatnot. He has all that, so I'm sure he can work around that as well. But this is at least on paper definitely a weakness. So इस हिसाब से I'd say that the main matchup for him would be, again, I'm assuming Dahani plays, but if Dahani plays, someone like Rauf or Dahani hitting hard lengths at him, I think that's definitely the way to go. And aside from that, I'd say agar chale, let's say khuda na khasta hi chala nahi, so I guess we can do Shadab and Inshallah as well. I think one thing you guys will notice a lot is the last resort for every batsman is just Shadab and Inshallah, because I mean there's not much else we can do if they get very set. So, but I'd say yeah, definitely high pace at hard lengths. That's the one thing I think of that we could trouble Pant with. But aside from that, he's just spin तो मतलब दूर ही रखनी चाहिए, इससे ये खा जाएगा. He'll destroy it in the middle. And I think after that, I'd probably move on to Hardik Pandya. I think Hardik Pandya, again, very similar to Pant in the sense that he again murders spin of all kinds. I find one thing very interesting about Pandya is that he actually does not have a good record against leg spin. In T20s, it's an average of 21.7 and a strike rate of 100.7. And at T20Is, this falls to an average of 10.5 and a strike rate of 72.4. Personally, this is extremely surprising for me. I don't understand ये कैसे हो सकता है, because genuinely, I mean, if we look at the gin of the 2017 Champions Trophy, usme all he did that whole game was murder spin. That's how he made that fast knock. He destroyed Shadab, he destroyed Imad, he destroyed Fakhr. And I would say this is one case where I feel like stats could be misleading. But definitely, I guess that's one matchup that could be used, which is Shadab. Uske alawa, I would say in general, we want to avoid bowling spin to him, because I think he plays it very well. He's got these long levers और वो सही तरह मारता है spin को. And uske alawa, I'd say the other thing that could maybe work for him that we saw in the last game we played against India was high pace at hard lengths. As we saw, Rauf isko hard length pe fast ball deta tha, then he used to mix in a slower ball and variety kar karke. I think he got him out in that last over, and he kept him at a very low run rate in that last over. So I know Pandya was injured, but definitely I think that's another strat we could use. So I'd say the main matchups we want to focus on are Rauf mainly, just because he can mix it up. Maybe Dahani को भी इस्तेमाल किया जा सकता है, and Shadab. Those are the main bowling options we should probably try and use. I guess Naseem bhi aa sakta hai in this, but that's what I would personally be looking towards if I am kind of strategizing against India. And yeah, the last one is Jadeja. With Jadeja, I'd say that if I recall, the last game he got out to Hassan Ali. I think it was an off cutter that he chipped to mid off, mid on, something like that. I'd say for him, if I'm not wrong, his stats against off spin are very bad. Unfortunately, we don't have any off spinners. But iske saath, I think the main thing we can do is probably bowl kind of pacers who can bowl off cutters in the mix. So I just think genuinely our off cutter is more or less just a fast off spinner. Try and kind of exploit that and essentially try and make him deceive him and make him mess up. Take maybe just like the last game, he kind of chips a catch or maybe gets out plumb in front, something like that. But uske alawa, he's also not that good against leg spin, at least on paper. So we could use that. But aside from that, he can't really. He's a good pace hitter, and he has a good average and a strike rate against left arm orthodox. So those are kind of the things we want to avoid. Pace on the ball, wo maar sakta hai, that is for sure. So we definitely need someone who can disguise their off cutter to him. So maybe someone like Rauf. Yeah, I think even Naseem has developed a good off cutter now. So although of course it will be his T20I debut in a pressure situation, but maybe Naseem also and Shadab as well. So that's kind of the summary of what I saw when I just did a bit of digging into the stats as a cricket enthusiast. I think definitely if we plan our overs out and we plan these things with some intensity and vigor, I definitely think we can win this match, especially if we bowl first. I think we do have the options here to win this match. Ab ek aur baat aati hai if we're looking at pressure and all those things, but definitely there is a capacity here to really get those think tank brains together and really make a plan that can help us out here. Because for me, there are weaknesses in this Indian batting lineup. It's a strong batting lineup, don't get me wrong at all. But as any player, there's always something you can exploit. And अब देखते हैं इंशाल्लाह कर सकते हैं ये लोग exploit कि नहीं, वो एक और बात है. But definitely there we should look to kind of exploit this matchup data. Of course, matchups are one thing, playing is another, but just have these things in the back of your mind. Yeah.
No, that was some pretty comprehensive stuff, Zen. I'm sure listeners को तो काफी एक deep insight मिल रही है into what to expect from the Indian team. Obviously, looking the other way around, the Indian bowlers and the Pakistani batsmen, I think main तो यही है कि हमारा middle order के जो struggles रहे हैं थोड़े against, I mean, not specifically against spin in general, but obviously when we look at number 4, your number 5, there has to be a certain ability against spin, and India really does have a loaded department in that regard, whether it's Chahal or Jadeja and so on. I think again we've already touched on Heather and Shadab, and that would be the way to go. Pacer department, I'm very interested to see how if Arshdeep Singh is going to be starting for them. क्योंकि with Bumrah gone, obviously उनकी death bowling को काफी एक hit लगने वाला है, and Arshdeep in the IPL has been extremely impressive. Hasn't played a lot for India, but what he has played, he's been decent. He does rely a lot on those on the fuller Yorker lengths towards the end, and he has the tendency to nail it more often than not. Again, international level pe pressure alag hota hai, but I think playing in the IPL does set you up well for that kind of level, especially the type of batsman you have in that tournament. Moving on to the final section, I think it's time we kind of just name our preferred 11s. I think आप लोग को idea तो आई ही गई होगी अभी तक कि क्या 11 होने वाले हैं. तो first are your your preferred Pakistan 11 and what your expected Indian 11 is, and obviously 3x and then 3x factors from each team who you think are going to be very important in deciding the outcome. Zen, please go ahead.
I'm gonna start with the Pakistan 11. इसके लिए मेरे पास काफी अच्छा एक आइडिया है कि क्या खेलना चाहिए, किन को खेलना चाहिए. Indian 11, while one of you guys is naming your Pakistan level, I'll whip it up quickly. But for the Pakistan 11, I'm looking to have Babar and Rizwan open. And one down pe Fakhar hoga. This is kind of a no-brainer. These three are pretty much secure. Two down pe I'd have Haider Ali. At 5, I'd have Shadab. 6 pe Khushta. 7 pe Asif Ali. 8 pe Mohammad Nawaz. And then 9, 10, 11 for me is, I guess Haris Rauf probably bats at 9. And Naseem Shah at क्या कहते हैं, at 10. And I would go with Dahani at 11. But then again, as I would like to reiterate, I honestly don't mind Hassan playing, but I think Dahani deserves to start this game. If we look at our X Factor players, I think one of these X Factor players for me is Shadab, just because, like I said, I feel he offers so much to the game, with his batting, bowling, fielding, tactical input, whatnot. What चीजें हैं जो वो leadership. There's a lot of things he can offer in this game. I think he can get some game-changing wickets and provide a game-changing spell. Definitely, I think he has the capacity to do that, and he can also contribute with the bat. So there's just so many dimensions here that I just feel like he has that X factor in him to contribute in some way. The second player that I think is the kind of X factor in this 11 is Naseem Shah, actually. Again, I know everyone thinks like, he's quite a proven player already and whatnot, but I think we should remember कि ये उसका T20I debut है, और ये T20I debut जो है उसने इंडिया के खिलाफ करना है. ये जो है ना, इसमें आपको एक और ही लेवल का प्रेशर लग जाता है कि हम प्रॉब्ली समझ भी नहीं सकते अभी. I mean, if I'm not wrong, he's on paper younger than me, and he's going to be playing for Pakistan and debuting in Asia Cup. That's insane. But why I think he's an X Factor player? Because मेरे हिसाब से अभी जो है ना हमारी new ball bowling में, from a pace point of view, there is a hole that Shaheen has left. And based on PSL performances and based on what we've seen from our own, अपनी आंखों से जो देखा है, मुझे लगता है नसीम शाह जो है ना वो एक या दो बहुत important wickets ले सकता है शुरू में, and he can offer that kind of X factor game changing spell perhaps, because especially Pakistan की brand of cricket यही है कि we try to get early new ball wickets with some good movement with the ball, right? तो आई वुड थिंक दैट एटलीस्ट मेरे पास उम्मीद है कि वो ये कुछ ऐसा कर सकता है. और मेरा जो आखिरी प्लेयर है, who I think is an X factor player for me, I was going to say Rauf, but I just think he's such a proven commodity now that you can't really call him an X factor player. So I'd probably go with I'm gonna go on a limb here and I'm gonna say Asif Ali is an X factor player. I just think that Asif Ali का पूरा जो career है, he's had to face adversity, be it के उनकी unfortunately उनकी बेटी फौत हो गई, or fans always hound him for everything, right? अभी उन्होंने आपको 2 games जिताई हैं World T20 में, right? And he kind of pulled those games out of nowhere, let's be honest, right? And ऐसी performances hitters जो है अपनी पूरी करियर में एक एक दो दो करते हैं, and he did them in like back to back games, right? So I think we take that for granted, really. I really think we do, and I think we should really think about how hard it is to do that hitter role. मैंने कितनी बार ये बोला है spaces में कि time and time again the hitting role is an unforgiving one, because you are set up for failure in this role, you just are. But इतने unforgiving role में वो मुस्कुरा के हर बार वापस जाके खेलते हैं. And I really believe that he is a great pace hitter, although of course he does struggle on hard lengths as well. I feel like he can definitely take that game away from India if he's used properly. If he's used at the right moments, I think he can offer that X factor that we're looking for. So yeah, my three players in this X factor are I think I said Shadab, Naseem Shah, and Asif Ali. An honorable mention would probably be Haider Ali, but I'm just not sure if he'll be starting. Although I want him to start, तो इसलिए मैंने Haider Ali का नाम नहीं लिया. But yeah, those are my three.
No, beautifully put. I'll go ahead with my Pakistan 11. Obviously, Babar, Rizwan, Fakhar, top three. Now, if it were up to me, it would be Rizwan and Fakhar opening and Babar at three. But I think we all know that's not really going to happen because they're pretty set in what they want to go with. I just think Fakhar could provide a better impetus up top. And Babar, ke, if we compare his phase-wise strike rate, he's a lot stronger in the middle overs compared to as an opener. But that's a debate for later. I think it's not going to change as of now. 4 पे हैदर, 5 पे शदाब, 6 पे Khushtil, 7 pe Asif. Now, this comes with a caveat where if we find ourselves in the last 5 overs, I would promote Asif above Khushtil. I would send him in. I would be like, bhai, आखिरी 5 over तुम्हारी game hai. Go and do it. Obviously, Khushtil can do it as well, but I feel like Asif is much better at going in and hitting from the get-go. And it's like a high risk, it's like a high risk, high reward kind of situation. Agar खुदा ना खास्ता वो out भी हो गया, then you have Khushtil to come in and handle it from there. 8 Nawaz, 9, 10, 11 would be Haris, Naseem, Dahani. So pretty much I have the same 11 as you. कुछ 11 में तो फर्क नहीं था. It's just placements में मुझे थोड़ा बहुत है, but I don't think that much is going to change. The only thing that I think would be happening is the shuffling of the numbers depending on कौन से phase of the game में हम लोग हैं. X factors wise, I'm gonna go on a limb and put all my stocks in Haider Ali because that's my brand at this point. I know my brain tells me he's not gonna be in the 11, लेकिन यार पाकिस्तानी हूँ आखिर दिल से ही सोचता हूँ मैं. तो I'm going with my heart and gonna say Haider Ali is gonna be an X factor for us. I would say Rauf is someone I'm putting a lot of expectation on. He's going into this as the most experienced pacer in the attack, assuming Hassan Ali doesn't play. So I think this is the perfect opportunity for him to come into his own. And if anyone's turned the abuse of the fans into faith, it is Rauf. Like मुझे अभी तक याद है pre-World T20 last year, लोग बोल रहे थे भाई वहाब रियाज को वापस लाओ, ये हारिस तो टेप बॉल बॉलर है, इससे तो कुछ होता नहीं है. और अभी तो सब रऊफ एफसी के मेंबर्स बन चुके हैं. लेकिन यार जो शुरू से थे हमें पता है भाई हमने कितनी गालियां खाई हैं इसको सपोर्ट करने की. एंड नंबर 3 वुड now I'm expecting stuff from Naseem, but I don't want to put too much of an expectation on him either because it is his T20I debut. He could very well just knock it out of the park from the get-go, but I'll temper my expectations with him a bit. I'm ready for a situation where he might not do that well and I think we need to continue to back him in that case. My third X factor would be Shadab. Actually, no, I'm taking that back. I think it's going to be Nawaz. क्योंकि हमने ऑलरेडी बात की है वो जो रोहित और स्काई की जो वीकनेसेस हैं. आई फील लाइक he's going to be very important. Nawaz का जो opening spell is going to make or break the game for us. I'm kind of stealing a line there from Rayan. Everyone who knows Rayan knows him and knows what I'm talking about. But yeah, like he's also I was talking to him the other day and we talked about like how that opening spell is going to decide how the rest of the game pans out for us. I think that's about it for our discussion before I do call it an end to the episode. I think it's prediction time. Zen, kya lag raha hai? Who's winning?
I'm okay. The thing for me is मैं जो पाकिस्तान का फैन हूँ जितना भी मैं पेसिमिस्टिक बनूँ ना मुझे ऑलवेज इस टीम से बहुत उम्मीद होती है. ऑलवेज इट्स जस्ट हाउ आई रोल. अपने ब्रेन में मैं अजीब से रैशनल बना लेता हूँ कि किस तरह हम जीतेंगे. 2017 चैंपियंस ट्रॉफी से पहले भी मैंने कहा था हम जीत जाएंगे. 2019 वर्ल्ड कप से भी कहा था पहले जीत जाएंगे. 2021 वर्ल्ड T20 से भी पहले कहा था जीत जाएंगे. There's always some way I make a rationale that will scrape through into the semis and build momentum. So my brain says that India should win this. But honestly speaking, I think this game is very toss dependent. I think ये game toss से ही decide होगी. And whichever team bowls first will win this game. Pakistan ho या India ho. I hope that we'll win the toss, and I hope we'll win. But I genuinely believe this game will be decided on the toss. And it's purely abhi mere liye it's genuinely 50-50. For me, it's a fight between their middle order versus our top order and our bowlers. So we'll see how that goes. And so my prediction is I'm leaning towards Pakistan, but I genuinely think it's all dependent on the toss. And just before I pass on, I just remembered that I think we were also going to talk about the India 11s. तो फॉर मी जिस तरह मैंने वो जो मैचअप्स डेटा के हिसाब से जो मैंने बात की थी, आई एम प्रीटी श्योर दैट टॉप 7 विल बी रोहित, राहुल, कोहली, सूर्या, पांत, जडेजा, सूर्या, पांत, Hardik, Jadeja, and then the bowlers are a bit convoluted for me. I'm not gonna put them in a batting 11 order because I just don't know which ones will play. I think Bhuvi will definitely play. I think Chahal will definitely play. I think Arshdeep Singh, if he definitely doesn't play, he should play just because he's a left-arm seamer and he just offers that variety. And I actually rate him very highly. I think he's a all-phase bowler. Power play भी bowl कर सकता है, death भी bowl कर सकता है, middle overs भी कर सकता है. And he's genuinely a player that मैंने जिसको observe किया has a very high cricket IQ. Bowling IQ उसकी बहुत अच्छी है. He has good variations. He has a good stock ball. And उसमें अक्ल है बहुत. That is one strength that I really like about him. And the last bowler, I'm not sure. I feel like they'll either opt for Avesh or Ashwin. I'm not sure if they want a third seamer or an extra spinner. I'm not sure what they're gonna go with there because Ashwin offers that off spin variety and Avesh, of course, would be just a more traditional third seamer pick. So, पता नहीं देखते हैं. But I don't think Bishnoi will play. I think Bishnoi is a backup for Chahal. So, but yeah, that's my 11, more or less for India.
Yeah, no, I'm on the same page as you in terms of the Indian 11. मैं यही mention करने वाला था. It would be interesting to see if they go with a second, another specialist spinner, whether it's going to be whether it's going to be Bishnoi or it's going to be Ashwin. But I kind of agree. I think the off spin factor with Ashwin might help him edge it out to an extent. Prediction wise, yeah, देखें on paper, though it's very close, I would say, because both teams are missing their ace pacers. पाकिस्तान का तो अभी हमें pace attack में और भी uncertainty दिख रही है, but this is where I'm going to go on vibes and say because there's so much chaos around the Pakistan team so close to the tournament कि जीत हम ही निकाल के लाएंगे. If you want my serious opinion, I agree with you on the toss. जो टॉस जीतेगा वो मैच जीतेगा. I think that's the trend in Dubai, and I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. Now that I've said that, watch us change that trend for the worse. हम लोग देखते हैं क्या होता है खैर संडे को. Anyways, great Zen, it's been great chatting to you. Thank you for coming on to the episode. Please do subscribe to the channel. Follow Zen on Twitter. I'm going to be linking his account down below. Please stay tuned to the channel. We'll have more content coming your way over the next few weeks. Obviously, lots of cricket to come ahead. Follow me on Twitter, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and I will talk to you all very soon again. Take care and Allah Hafiz.